Someone has asked me to write and do a video on the music of the 1970s, so that's generally what we're going to talk about today. But before I begin, I have to say I was excited about starting this, but then I thought, well, this is a massive subject, so many tunes and genres and fads. So I got my thinking cap on and came up with this, hopefully, a different perspective angled towards the way music has changed and influenced our social history in the UK. After all, it's now my brand. So let's get on with it. The 1970s in British music and internationally was an era where we set the fashions and the trends. Pop stars would only have to wear a scarf or a pair of tartan trousers, for example, and suddenly the kids were wearing them all over the place. Before I even give you an example, you've got the Bay City Rollers in your heads, haven't you? It's a fine example of how the fashion had changed just by one Scottish band had sent the nation crazy over a group of a few lads that did mostly cover versions. It's the decade where I think had the most changes and variety in music. Styles such as rock and roll and glam rock, and ended up with the decade being new wave and electronic synth. Let us look at the long hair, massive flares with bands like Wizard and Slade. The bigger the shoes, the longer the hair, the better. Words like groovy and far out were confusing our parents, where kids are having a language of their own, according to the elders, who don't understand kids today. There has always been a distance in generations with music, such as the rockabilly or the skittle age of the 1950s, and I'm sure many of us think on that notion today. Well, do you know what's in the charts today? I ain't got a clue. Do we know what's number one? I couldn't care less. Now, the Summer of Love was just a year ago, but many people were still gathering to enjoy music in that novel way. Massive concerts in parks and fields was still the rage, and many people were worried about the drug culture that came with some of the music of that style and era. Peace, man. Underground clubs were playing northern soul music. They were getting bigger. It was where this type of music was integrating different cultures. Black people were clubbing with white folks. Sheer magnetism of sounds was causing this. It was incredible, and the pulling of people together was amazing. People were there for the music and the dance moves that integrated people from all cultures. Mainly from the USA, Northern Soul was rooted from R&B and Motown, and there are still many fans of this today. The fashion baggy trousers and the Doc Martens was the trend set gear for all those night bashes. Northern Soul nights are still on the go now, playing some rare records which are very sought after. One of my favourites was Judy Street, What? And The Snake, but I can't remember who did that. Disco fever. Disco was not only a massive music trend, but it was the origin of many spin-off musical styles, which we will go into soon, such as high energy and Eurodance. Beginning in the late 1960s, the 1970s was engulfed with disco tunes that took Britain and the world by storm. Beginning in New York City on the underground circuit, disco was a major craze. Swift beats with brass, keyboards and orchestral pianos, all thrown into the pot with positive lyrics, mainly choosing dance or rhythm songs, telling us how to get on that dance floor and boogie under the flashing lights and those mirror balls down at the discotheques. Hip swinging, flared jeans making their own moves of their own. This was a massive success in bringing many cultures of people from all backgrounds together and classes. It was a thrill of spending hours exhibiting great dance moves and outrageous clothing attire. The nation was dancing and the hits were going mainstream. Donna Summer, Angie Gold, Gloria Gaynor, all getting titled disco queens. Even our parents were dancing to the radio when ABBA was getting down to the groove. Disco emerged in many different genres, such as high energy, a super fast beat of singers such as Sylvester, Mikael Brown and Jessica Williams that screeched out love songs in super high pitched voices, with the creation of melodic music sounds and beats that were very fast-paced. Mainly played in gay bars, again underground, this love of music brought many people from all identities together, even had its individual chart recorded in the record mirror. Could this be an influence of acceptance of LGBTQ folk? Music, like food, brings people together, but as we will see later in the video, it can also tear them apart. Some mainstream chart-topping hits such as I Feel Loved by Donna Summer was a crossover hit between disco and high energy. Eurobeat was soon to be another spin-off from disco, with artists such as Valerie Dorr and Bad Boys Blue. The smell of amyl nitrate filled the dance floors, commonly known as poppers, and the outfits were scantily clad with handlebar moustaches and figure-hugging clothes. By the end of the 1970s, disco had declined, but not disappeared. It seemed that the fatigue of the craze was onset by a backlash called the Disco Demolition Night in Chicago, where bonfires were set with the burning of mounds of disco records in 1979. The radio stations had started to play other types of music. Plus, tensions of racism and homophobia played a part in the decline of the disco age, according to items published in the media. But disco never died. You ask a DJ today to play Dancing Queen by ABBA at a party, and you'll see the mood change and the dance floor fill up. And Oops Upside Your Head by the Gap Band, remember that? Everybody on the floor, rowing. Men wearing makeup? Never. But glam rock stars were emptying the shelves of the Boots counters for those glittery male band stars, singing loudly and making an impression on all of us. Does Roy Wood spring to mind? Or the soft voice of the fabulous T-Rex Mark Ott Bolan? What did we do? Well, not so much the makeup, but the flared trousers got bigger, the shirt collars as well, not to mention how tall British men had suddenly become in those platform shoots. Kids today. I remember hearing the comments like long-haired layabout from elders, as I'm sure we all do. But did we like shocking our parents? Eh? Rock. Hard rock bands such as Black Sabbath and Deep Purple changed the rock and roll era that our parents always loved to hear on the music player or on the radio, that we still listen to ourselves, but this type of heavier rock was not the rock music that they wanted to hear. The louder the tracks, the better, and it wasn't long before our bedrooms were soundproofed by the gifting of your very own personal stereo headphones, and the bedroom blasting was sort of muffled. But when the parents were out, the windows vibrated and the floor shook. So yet another fashion in clothes had emerged. Denim jackets, leather waistcoats covered in badges. A new culture had collated, young people getting together, and it was exclusive for die-hard fans that almost had you passing a music exam in rock to be in their company. Album artwork had progressed from those smiley, cheesy artists' faces on the record covers to a more artistic and unfathomable artwork, particularly with the introduction of progressive rock with bands like Led Zeppelin or Pink Floyd. Now, progressive rock was a more subtle contrast of rock music, more artistically ambient with orchestral depth and a floaty yet thoughtful lyrical content. Different again, psychedelic rock was always by as many people considered more wacky and, to quote a phrase, far out man. The idea, though, that certain drug cultures were part of the listener's lifestyle, with substances such as lysergic acid and other psychoactive or hallucinogenic compounds. Who knows? The music of psychedelic rock was more dreamy. Elongated music pieces between the lyrics created a more hypnotic and mind-elevating experience. Bands such as Cream and the Grateful Dead sort of fitted into this genre. Now, reggae had been on the scene since the 1950s and before, mainly overseas, but it was emerging into the UK throughout the 60s. Either reggae dancehall or reggae roots was introducing bands that had been popular in Jamaica for years to the mainstream UK attention. Many artists such as Bob Marley, Jimmy Cliff and Peter Tosh brought the music to the UK pop charts. Albeit in the 60s the nation was already aware of Blue Beat records supporting reggae stars such as the Big Buster. Many reggae records would consist of repeated chords and rhythms that could be recognised from previously known tracks. Reggae being easily recognised by its deep bass guitar and its slower beats. Followers from all backgrounds were following the music. Through its lyrical content we were learning more about black culture, which integrated more folks, the music and its different dance styles, and created yet another positive craze throughout the globe. Bands such as UB40 made a great impact in the late 70s, with both black and white band members bringing some old cover reggae tunes to the UK charts. During this era, many would link this with the consumption of substances such as marijuana, known as wacky backy. Anarchy in the City. The fast, loud, distorted guitars, the lyrics of discontent being shouted at its audience. Punk rock had hit the scene, and in some cases, the national press. Evolved from the USA again in the 1970s, but by the middle of the decade, UK had had its own addition to the punk rock craze, the Sex Pistols, the Damns, and the Buzzcocks, just to name a few. The sound was more aggressive, with many guitars screeching out and fast drums. The raw sound was really brand new and was heard in bars and clubs that would exclusively bring fans that had the same attitude towards the songs being performed. The songs were often snarled rather than sang, with rants about social dissatisfaction and political unrest. Live gigs would consist of longer musical intervals between the lyrics, giving the crowd to jump all over the place and push people all over the floor. Socially, this music brought some unrest and even violence from those who agreed with the lyrics of anger and discontent. The fashion, often looked down at by the media and of course by many older folks in the community. Tight torn jeans, tartan was back. Body piercing and rings through the noses were almost feared by people. And let's not forget those massive Mohican spiky hairdos. They were an absolute work of art with all those colours of the rainbow. Even if you were not a fan of the music or the outfits, we had to admire the efforts that they made to get that look. Only a few punk bands entered the pop charts, as the well-loved, well-known Top of the Pops was very select of who they'd invite to the show. After all, it was the BBC. The anti-racist two-tone skinhead movement. There was a re-emergence of the skinhead culture in the 1970s, obvious with shaved heads, white shirts, tight jeans and Doc Martin boots was the trademark, with the black long coat and not forgetting the braces. Albeit some subgroups went for the neo-Nazi following, but the idea of the skinhead was more an anti-middle class divide and was not concerned with racism. Ska music following and rude boy subculture was what the 70s skinhead was more about. Bands such as the Specials from Coventry with a mixed race band and Selector were classed as two-tone, releasing ska reggae type tunes that not only had its skinhead following but was mainstream in the UK charts, and these records are still loved today. The skinhead, mainly working class, originally was very interested in reggae styles of music such as roots and ska. Always smart and clean. Remember, oi. But let's look at the 1970s and its charts, and it's unbelievable what different types of music was being produced. We had country stars such as Dolly and Tammy, we had rock and roll bands like Shawaddy Waddy, great ballads from Don McLean and Neil Diamond, glam rock, disco, heavy rock, and those novelty songs that always charted but no one ever admitted buying them. Clive Dunn in 1971 with Grandad, or Father Abraham in 1978 with his Little Blue Smurfs from the Netherlands, or Dankjewel Nederlands. Whatever next was on this musical horizon. Well, get ready for this. electronic music. We had heard snippets of electronic keyboards even in the late 60s with the Musitron, featured in Del Shannon's hits like Runaway and Hats Off to Larry. The early 70s we had Son of the Father by Chicory Tip with its Moog synthesizer written by Giorgio Moroder. Later we had I Feel Love, same guy again, with Donna Summer. The German band Kraftwerk had been making electronic sounds since 1974, even inventing their own technology to make their own distinctive sounds. The UK would have to wait until 1982 to hear their sounds when they released 1978 original hit Das Model, translated to English in the early 80s. But we had Gary Newman. The 1970s had just caught the era of new wave music when he released Our Friends Electric with his band Tubeway Army, and quickly followed it up by his solo hit Cars. Now, I don't think any person of that era would not recognise that warbling sound of that intro into the song. That long monotone followed by those synth tones going down, however it went. But if you hear it, you'll recognise that song right away, and it sounded completely new. Fresh and totally futuristic. We all associate this with the 1980s, but Gary, bless him, he got in there first. The Human League had already been on the scene. They'd released 2 albums, Travelogue and Reproduction, of that style, and John Foxx was also about. So they were all battling to get there first. Well, as the 80s emerged, new wave synth bands also emerged in abundance. The 80s were being brand new sounds and hairstyles, rather strange, and men wearing makeup. Music had always been the food of emotion, trends, cultures and fashions. But is it as influential today? Does music impact our lives as much as it did back then? I don't know. But I imagine many people who have took the journey to watch this video may agree with me. It was real music in those days, just like our parents said before us. But come on, we composed, played instruments, sang live. Today's beatboxes, auto-tune vocals, non-changing chords and even AI. I'll leave that to your own thoughts. Well, thank you again, folks and friends, for looking at this nostalgic look at the 1970s in music. And I hope I have included some of your favourite styles. More videos of social history are on my channel, and it's building. Thank you very much. But I'm always open to suggestions, so please realise if you can or will. But each video does take about a week to make. That's researching, doing pictures, correcting my spelling mistakes, and correcting my narration. I ain't going to bother correcting that bit, you know it now. Your comments have been wonderful, and I thank you so much for your support. So I shall say bye for now.